Hey, Mike Matthews here from Muscle for Life and Legion Athletics, and in this video podcast, I'm going to answer a question that I've been getting a lot over the last year or so, and that is, can you be healthy when you are overweight? Can you actually be healthy at every size? Now let's start with defining the word healthy, because that word can mean different things to different people. So when I say healthy, what I mean is that you have no disease states in your body that are impairing the function of your organs. So for example, if somebody has elevated HbA1c levels, which indicates their body does not do a good job processing glucose, but has not yet developed type 2 diabetes, by my definition, that person would still be healthy. You could say that they are closer to unhealthy than somebody with normal HbA1c levels, but they are not yet unhealthy. Now, when we are talking body weight, the easiest way to determine what is a normal body weight versus what is overweight for most people is to use the BMI, the body mass index, which is a relationship between your height and your body weight. Now, if you are familiar with BMI, you know that it is not a great metric for those of us with more lean mass than the average person. For example, my body fat percentage is rather low, probably around 9%, but I have 40-ish pounds more muscle than the average person, and therefore, according to the BMI, I'm borderline overweight. But for most people who do not have more muscle than the average person, the BMI is a quick and easy way to accurately determine whether they have a normal body weight or whether they are overweight or obese and so on. So generally speaking, a BMI of 18.5 to 24.9 is considered a normal body weight range. 25 to 29.9 is considered overweight. 30 to 34.9 is considered obese, and 35 plus is considered morbidly obese. And just to put those numbers in perspective, I am 6'2" and I weigh 195 pounds, and I'm around 9% body fat, and my BMI is 25, putting me in the beginning of the overweight range, which obviously isn't true. However, if I did not have a lot more muscle than the average person, if I was just your average 6'2" guy, 195 pounds, my body fat percentage would be a lot higher and I would be overweight. Okay, so now the question at hand: how does body weight relate to health? And we're going to use BMI as a proxy for body weight because there's a lot of research on the correlation between different BMI levels and general health. And first, let's just talk about the idea that you can be healthy at every size, because that is a trendy thing these days, often used by very obese people to justify their obesity. Ironically, the health at every size acronym has its scientific roots in a special diet plan specifically for people who get really hyper-focused on their weight and who tend to yo-yo diet and who struggle to lose weight and keep it off. And so what scientists did is they helped these people understand that weight is just a number, and instead of focusing so much on that number, they should focus on eating good food and learning intuitive eating, and that helped people lose weight. And so again, my point here is that health at every size, scientifically speaking, is a weight loss intervention. It was designed to help overweight people lose weight, not help them remain overweight and feel okay about it. Now, how true is the health at every size idea, at least as most people understand it? Can you really be healthy at any size? Can you be morbidly obese and healthy? No. You see, the reality is, if you exercise regularly and you eat fairly well, you eat a fair amount of relatively unprocessed, nutritious foods, you can be healthy by the definition that I gave earlier, meaning that you don't have any disease states, your organs are working correctly, your body can operate at normal capacity, and also be overweight. You can have a BMI of, let's say, 25 to 29.9. You can be in that overweight range and still be, for all intents and purposes, healthy if you exercise regularly and eat well. And you can probably remain healthy for the long haul if your BMI is in the 25 to 29.9 range and you also exercise regularly and eat fairly well. I think that's a reasonable statement to make based on the research that we have available on the correlation between BMI and disease states, and also the research we have on how exercise in particular influences this. For example, we know that the fatter someone is, the more insulin resistant they are. So the more overweight they are, the less sensitive their bodies are to insulin's signals, which means that the body has to produce even more and more insulin to shuttle the nutrients from the blood into primarily the muscle and fat cells. Now, of course, if somebody's muscle and fat cells become too insulin resistant, they have type 2 diabetes, which is a disease that absolutely ravages the body. And this is why preserving insulin sensitivity is a major factor in preserving all-around health. Now, what are some good ways to do that? Well, not being overweight definitely helps, but exercise is a powerful way to improve insulin sensitivity as well, and cardiovascular exercise in particular, which is why research shows that cardiovascular fitness is correlated with the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. The more cardiovascularly fit you are, regardless of your body weight, the less likely you are to develop type 2 diabetes. And resistance training too deserves a shout out because research shows that it also improves insulin sensitivity, and of course it also adds muscle mass to your body, and muscle mass alone has protective effects against type 2 diabetes. So the more muscular you are, the less likely you are to develop type 2 diabetes, and the more cardiovascularly fit you are, the less likely you are to develop type 2 diabetes. Now, if we're talking all around health, we also have to talk about cardiovascular health because heart disease, of course, is the number one killer in the world. And the research is clear here that obesity is a major risk factor for all-cause mortality related to heart issues, meaning the more overweight someone is, the more likely they are to die of a cardiovascular disease. So in this way, being overweight is most certainly unhealthy, and the more overweight somebody is, the more unhealthy it is when we're looking at it from a cardiovascular perspective. And while exercising can bring that risk down, it is still not as low as it would be in somebody who is in a normal body weight range who is also exercising regularly. I think this is a good point to comment on the argument of whether it is better to be fit, fat, or lean, lazy. So is it healthier to be overweight and exercising regularly, or normal weight and not exercising at all? There's actually a good scientific paper on this that was conducted by scientists at the University of Texas and the University of Queensland, and it was published in 2015. And the long story short here is fit fat does seem to be better from a cardiovascular health perspective. Now, you should keep in mind, though, that is no longer true when you get into the very overweight ranges. When BMI goes to 30 and beyond, that becomes less and less true. There is a point where the lean, lazy person has a lower risk of heart disease than the very, very overweight person who's also exercising regularly. And the reason for that is, from a health perspective, while you can get away with some fatness, you can be overweight, you can be in that 25 to 29.9 BMI range and exercise regularly and eat well and sleep well and don't drink a bunch of alcohol, don't smoke, and be healthy and stay healthy. There is a point where being fat simply just becomes unhealthy regardless of whatever else you're doing in your life. And we can find very clear evidence of that in research on the correlation between BMI and mortality. All-cause mortality, our chances of dying from anything and everything, the vast majority of those things being diseases, of course. For example, there was a very good and very extensive review on this published just recently, published last year in 2017, and it was conducted by scientists at the University of Bristol and the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And in that paper, the lead author said that an extra 3 to 4 units on the BMI scale is associated with a 5% increase in all-cause mortality. Now, what this means then is if your BMI goes from 20, normal, to about 23 or 24, starting to be overweight, your chances of dying over a set period of time increase by about 5%. And if you were to go from 20 to, let's say, 30, now you're getting into the obese range, your chances of dying over a set period of time increase by about 15 to 20%. Now, of course, these scientists were looking at people on a population level, and they were looking at BMI, not body composition, which is very important, of course, especially to those of us who are into resistance training, because, again, my BMI is 25, but not because I have a lot of body fat, which is ultimately what we're talking about. Having a lot of body fat is unhealthy. It gets to a point where it's unhealthy, whereas having a lot of muscle is actually very healthy. Now, of course, you can take that to the point of unhealthy, but that requires steroids. You're never going to get too muscular naturally to a point where it impairs your health. It's just not going to happen. And so my point here is that it's very clear that for the average person, maintaining a normal body weight is generally healthier than being overweight, and is most definitely healthier than being obese and beyond. And that's true regardless of how much they might exercise or how well they eat or how many other healthy habits they've developed. There is that wiggle room. You can be slightly overweight, and you can offset the negative health effects with regular exercise, eating well, good sleep hygiene, and so forth. But even those people would be better off if they were doing all those things in a normal body weight range. Now, for those of us who are into resistance training, who are into building muscle, or who have a lot more muscle than the average person, we can look at it more in terms of body composition. We can look at it in terms of body fat percentage. For us, it is best to have a normal body fat percentage and do everything else that we do, as opposed to having a much too high body fat percentage and going to the gym and eating well and so forth. And to put numbers on that, unfortunately, there isn't a lot of research that I can cite here, but based on my understanding of things, I think it's reasonable to say that for guys, if you are in the body fat percentage range of about 10 to 15%, you maybe could stretch that as high as 20%. If you're also exercising a lot, then you are okay. But I would prefer to see people, I prefer to see guys in the 10 to 15% range as opposed to pushing 20%. And for girls, 20 to 25% would be the ideal range. Of course, you can be a bit lower if you want to be leaner, but if we're just talking health, 20 to 25%. And some people might say that you could stretch that as high as 30%. Again, I would rather see a woman in the 20 to 25% range than the 25 to 30% range. And once you get beyond 30%, now you're getting into the overweight range. And for guys, of course, as you get beyond 20%, you're looking at overweight. And that's it for the video. I hope you liked it. And if you did, please do share it around and tell people about what I'm doing. It really helps me. And also, please do give this video a like if you liked it, and drop a comment down below letting me know what you thought. And of course, if you really want to make me happy, and if you want to know when my next video goes live, click the big red subscribe button over there and the bell next to it, and YouTube will notify you when the next video goes up. All right, thanks again, and I will see you in that next video.